Okay, so we're gonna experiment a little bit with doing a Zoom meeting of one, and I'm going to do a lesson 4 today. So I know that, hold on, gotta get my page out. So I know that we have done a good amount of work talking about getting used to our setting, and I know that you have done some work with characters, dealing with problems and how they're, but today we're going to talk a little bit about how the collisions of an internal trait can really be problematic for this external conflict that all of our characters are experiencing. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story. In this current pandemic that we are in right now, my father is having a really hard time, more so than other people, because he's a very, very active person. He's got a tremendous amount of energy, and he likes to be going and doing and busy and problem solving. And he's 82 years old. And he also, so that's his personality, his trait of just being really active is one factor. Another factor is that he has an illness which makes him a little immunocompromised. So this is in this environment that he's in right now, in this conflict, this time in our history where you have to stay home, has been brutal for him. And I know that he knows in his head that he shouldn't be going out, and he knows that he's exposing himself and maybe to his wife and maybe other people, but he keeps sneaking out of the house. And my mom keeps catching him and, saying, "You're compromising our health," and getting really upset. It's tough on him. So today we're going to talk about the character that who we've been following from Patrol the Soldier, that we've been following, and just kind of experiment with or explore how who he is in this particular conflict, this particular time in history is really super challenging. So if you'll remember, I know this is taking you back maybe quite a bit ago, but I'm going to take you back to the beginning of the book and share from the beginning how he sort of saw that when he first got to Vietnam. The land of my enemy has wide valleys, mountains that stretch along the far horizon, rushing brown rivers, and thick green forests. And so, he's appreciating the beauty of nature. I know we all talked about that. And then I'm going to move to the middle part of the book that we've already read, but just as a matter of review, it says, "Suddenly there is silence. We are afraid to move. We are more afraid not to move." And a lot of us talked about how there was this fear in him. And I think some of you even brought up the fact that that a great many soldiers during the Vietnam War were drafted and were quite young. The average age of a soldier in the Vietnam War was 19 years old. So we did talk about that he might be sensitive, or he might be a gentle-natured person, and certainly maybe even almost, of an artistic nature, and certainly had an artistic eye. So we're going to move on today, and I'm going to read you more about him and about how these character traits that we see in him can become more problematic. So hopefully you have a pen and you can jot a few things down as we go. But I want you to see, what are his traits? Maybe his traits are something even more specific than that. And also, how are these traits that we are seeing in him in conflict with this point in history and the setting he's in right now? Okay, let's see. Okay. The bombs explode, rumbling like thunder at a distance that is never distant enough. My body shakes. I tell myself that I will not die on this bright day. Against the horizon, columns of blue-gray smoke rise. 2 clicks away, there are flashes of gunfire. 2 clicks is the distance of my enemy. My chest tightens. I wipe my sweaty palms. I bite back my tears. We move again. We are always moving. My legs ache. My shoulders sag. My 1,000 eyes look for death. in the waving bamboo fields. A village. It is our target. We circle it. We swing around, sweeping our gun sights along the windows in the huts. We rush in behind the hollow booming of grenades. Secure the village, a sergeant calls. He points towards the enemy. So I want you to listen very carefully to this next part because it's fascinating to hear how this man talks about the enemy. See what you learn about him. The enemy, a brown woman with rivers of age etched deeply into her face. An old man, his eyes heavy with memory. And babies. Babies. Little enemies crying on the mud roads. Little enemies with tears running down dusty cheeks. So from what I just read about his enemies, can you just jot down what kind of important character traits you think this is showing for the soldier? And if there's one that you think in particular will collide with the requirements and the expectations of his job. So I'm going to pause for a second, or you can pause the video and just jot down, like, what are we learning more about this soldier? Okay, so as I'm jotting my thoughts, one thing that kept coming up for me is he seems sympathetic. It's not just sensitive, he's sympathetic. And he's feeling for these people, that they're just, this old man who has all these memories. And again, and I think this is the second time he's mentioned older people and then babies too. And you can't see it in the book, but he stops and he says, babies, period. Babies. So, the fact that he has sympathy is going to make it really hard going forward for him to be a soldier. Okay. So, as you think about these people who are his enemy, what is the job of a soldier in regard to his enemy? What is he supposed to do now? I mean, he's supposed to kill them. That's his job. His job is to take out the enemy. So that's how his, traits are going to be in conflict here. All right, so I'm going to read on, and I want you to hear more about the historical conflict that he is caught up in. But I know there are other enemies, and they are strong and young. I am strong and young. The others, they are the real enemy. They have dogs that bark at danger, and wooden bowls that hold a day's rice, and grandmothers who stand sullen at their huts. This is my enemy. So we can see this is kind of a stunning way to describe his enemy. Hope I'm still on. Yay. I think it's still recording. Hope it didn't stop. Okay. So hopefully you've been able to come up with some more specific vocabulary for how we would describe him. So this soldier is a gentle soul, and he's an empathetic soul, and he's a sympathetic soul. And we had talked about him being fearful. So that's, but he's not just fearful, because he's now stuck, really. And so it's not his fear that's going to be, that's at this point the trait that's in conflict. It's his sensitivity that's going to be in conflict with the situation he finds himself. And so that's the work that I want us to do, and I want you to do some thinking here. We're going to finish the story at this point, and I want you to jot as you listen. And when we're done, I want you to talk about how this investigation of how these character traits, this is our big takeaway, what character traits are colliding with history here and are going to cause the most grief. Sort of like my father's need to be active, need to be a problem solver, need to be out in the world is hugely difficult for him. And this soldier, this sensitivity is hugely difficult for him. And so we're going to apply that to your books as you think about meeting with your with your groups tomorrow. And I know that some of you have finished your books, and that's totally fine. You can go back and do this work with a book that you started yesterday or that you finished, a week ago. It's still good work to be doing. Okay, so here's the end of the story. The pickup zone is just beyond a rice paddy. In the paddy, a farmer squats, waiting for the squad to pass. His stick-thin legs disappear into the shallow water, and it looks as if it is he who grows there. He is the harvest, we must understand. A shot. I reach for the ground and scramble for cover. The elephant grass cuts my arms as I slide toward a low wall. Then there is an opening in the tall grass, and I look through. There is the enemy. He's looking at me. We are surprised to see each other, shocked. How young he is. We stare across the distance. I know he wants me to lift my rifle to be the enemy. I want him to lift his rifle. I want him to turn away. In a heartbeat, we have learned too much about each other. The putt-putt of the chopper interrupts the moment. The enemy turns away and is swallowed by the lush grass that is everywhere in this land. I lift my rifle. I aim at the distant shadow. I am the enemy. I lower the rifle. My fingers clutch the webbing of the chopper. It strains with the weight of the squad. Below us, the land becomes a peaceful patchwork of greens and blues and browns. This land has wide valleys, mountains that stretch along the far horizon, rushing brown rivers, and thick green forests. And war. We land, and I am glad that I am alive. As the heat of the day passes to the heat of night, I write a letter to someone I love. I wonder if my enemy is writing a letter. I am so tired. I am so very tired of this war. Whew. So, what are you noticing? What are you thinking? Just jot any thoughts that you're having at this time. We won't really have a chance to turn and talk, but that's the work that you want to do in your own books. So one, you're going to say what traits are coming up for your character that collide with this point in history. And we know that if it's a novel, then there are going to be traits that are going to collide with history, because without a problem, you don't have a story. And that is the end of the lesson. You'll also see in Google Classroom, I want you to think about some questions you can bring to your group for your Socratic seminar discussion tomorrow. If you can look, there is the sheet that we used to write open-ended questions for Socratic seminar. I'd attach that if you want to just use that as so you have a half a dozen sentence starters, or you can come up with your own. Just try to keep them open-ended questions that you can help your group start your conversation with tomorrow. So I hope you enjoyed the mini lesson. If you have any questions, of course, you can reach out to me. Okay, stay safe, wash your hands, don't touch your face.